So, 12 years after it was supposed to arrive, I finally have the Skyzone 02X. And it comes in this big, chunky box. Now, if you've seen my previous review of the Skyzone 03 versus the Fat Shark HDOs, you'll know that I'm very much a fan of Skyzone. And the Sky 02X is essentially, or potentially, an upgraded version of my own beloved Skyzone 02S V+, which was a goggle that, until I got the HDOs and the Sky 03s, was a goggle that I flew with for, I don't know, 18 months, couple of years, something like that. So as you can see, I've got mine in the rather wacky water transfer design, simply because I thought, why not? White goggles are boring, which is why I got my other ones in red. And as you can see, it comes with this sort of faux leather faceplate, and you also get a spongy faceplate and this bit, which you can use to protect your lenses when you're travelling. Not that anybody ever does do. So, what have we got here? So this is kind of a mid-range goggle. So this is the Sky 02X. There's also the Sky 02C, which is the same but doesn't have a camera. You've got your Armway V1S, and we've got the recently released Fat Shark Attitude V5 with its OLED display. And in terms of where these sit, I suppose really the only couple of goggles that would be better are the HDOs, the Sky 03s, and potentially obviously HD3s, etc., if you can find them. So what we have is a sort of goggle aimed for people who are making that first step from cheapy box goggles to much nicer, smaller form factor goggles. And the Skyzones come with a fair bit of stuff. So you get a couple of rubbish antennas that you'd never use, these duck things, throw those in the bin. We've got a LiPo connector with a barrel connector on the other end, because these goggles will take 2 to 6 input, 2 to 6S input, and as you can see, they've got a fan with the Batman logo on again, and the fan isn't on a separate balance lead like the Fat Sharks, so you can run, as I said, 2 to 6S direct power without any issues. Also comes with additional connectors for your telly and all sorts of stuff, whatever you might need. Now everything is looking pretty much the same as what it was on the original Sky 02s. So we've got a HDMI socket, which the cheaper Fat Shark goggles don't have. We've got a USB port, AV out, and your SD card slot is here and can be easily accessed, rather than the Fat Shark ones where you need exceedingly long nails or your missus to get the DVR out. The one perk of the cheaper Skyzones as opposed to Fat Shark and the Sky 03s is when you plug a USB port in, the goggle will power up, which means that you don't even have to take your SD card out to look at your DVR. You can basically just transfer it straight from a USB cable, which makes it even easier. In terms of the screens, I expected them to be exactly the same as the Sky 02 V1S, and I don't know whether I'm imagining it, but they feel, or they seem, a little bit bigger. I imagined when I put them on, having used the Sky 03s with their huge 42-inch screen and the HDOs with the 37, that these would feel tiny, and they certainly are smaller, but I didn't sort of think, oh, I'm looking at a postage stamp. Some people prefer a smaller screen, particularly if you're racing or trying to hit trying to hit tight gaps. Sometimes having a smaller screen sort of focuses your eye better on the point that you're trying to hit, rather than being fed lots of information around the sort of outer edge of your eye. Now, I personally fly better on a bigger screen, but I tend not to be a sort of a guy who does lots of sort of tight gaps and things like that. In terms of the DVR, it's okay. It's the same as all the other DVRs on the Armway or the Fat Shark. Fine to find your quad. You're not really going to use it to impress your mates, and sadly it doesn't have the H.264 recording of the Sky or 3, which I love so much, which is a shame. It does, however, have the rather amazing fan, and on this one I think there are about 12 different settings. It's feels a tad less powerful than the Sky or 3s, but about 50 times powerfuler than the Fat Sharks. So this one you can actually feel it blowing into your eyes, and on a hot day I really enjoy it. Obviously it's a personal thing, but if, like me, you have a hot noggin, then you'll enjoy the fact that the fans on these can basically demist your goggles in literally a second. Other than that, I thought they were going to be essentially Sky or 2s, just rebranding, but the casing is different. Is it the same? So it is slightly different. Yeah, completely different actually. So it looks to me like the front part of the goggle here is pretty much the same as the original Sky or 2S V+, and this faceplate seems a little bit different. That's it with the faux leather, and everybody's faces are different. Personally, I find this a little bit uncomfortable, and I would always use the much thicker foam pad that it comes with. But either way, they fit just as well as a pair of Fat Sharks do. In terms of features, they're the same as they always are on a Skyzone. You have the lovely integrated on-screen display. Obviously we've got integrated diversity receivers. Everything's built in and is really handy, so you can change channels, and there's a spectrum analyzer so you can see if particular channels are busy or what your friends are flying on, etc. And it's all nicely built into the goggle. Obviously we've got built-in head tracking should you be a fixed wing pilot or somebody like that, which Fat Sharks don't have. So in terms of performance, I think they perform really well. Using them, I've had no issues with blurry edges or anything like that. The image sits nicely in front of my eyes. I've got pretty much a fairly wide diopter. I've got a fairly round fat head, and on the max setting I get a perfect image, so I can't imagine many people are going to run out of IPD adjustment. But having said that, like all goggles, everybody's eyes are different. Like all of them, you can fit the normal Fat Shark diopters in. These come with little plastic protectors for your screens, and the performance is really good. The colours are bright, the contrast is good. Because the screens are small, the lower resolution makes no real odds because the screen's small enough that you don't really notice it. And comparing it to the HDOs and the Sky or 3s, I would say the image quality is actually better on these, simply because the image is smaller, so you don't notice the imperfections as much. I suppose the real question on this really comes down to whether you choose these or one of the other goggles. And this is my opinion as someone who's used both Fat Shark and Skyzone, Fat Shark HDRs, the Skyzone 0 or 2S V+, for quite a long period of time. I'm a big fan of Skyzone. I've never had any issues with mine. I think the build quality is better than Fat Shark's. The cases feel much stronger and they don't creak in the same way. And I've never had any issues with mine. But of course, if you do have an issue, you're going to have to send it back to China and wait a month or so, or however long it takes before you get your goggles back. Whereas with Fat Shark, if you're in one of the countries that has a repair dealership like we do in the UK, or you'll have in America, as I've said before, my Fat Sharks were repaired and returned to me, you know, within a couple of days, and you can't really knock that about Fat Shark. So the big elephant in the room is obviously the Fat Shark Attitude V5, which I haven't used and I won't be reviewing, simply because I only did this really because Banggood asked me to, and as a fan of Skyzone, I thought it'd be good to get the word around if these goggles are any good. My feeling on the Attitude V5s is it's Fat Shark's attempt to basically stop other goggle manufacturers from stealing the mid ground, the ground that is arguably the most profitable area, because not that many people are going to spend £400 plus on a Fat Shark HDR. There are a lot more people flying out there on cheaper goggles than there are on the top end. The Attitude V5s are a lower resolution, but they have an OLED screen. As somebody who uses an OLED screen, I don't think they're all that, and the benefits of them, in my opinion, are probably only seen on a minimum of this size goggle. Now I've set my Skyzone 3s up and set the cameras up on my quads to match this goggle, I've pretty much used this every single time I've flown since I originally reviewed these goggles, and these guys have been gathering dust. In fact, the only reason I'm using them at the moment is I'm expecting a rapid fire module to test, so I put my lenses inside them, and that is really the only reason they're getting some use. So the OLED screens, I think, are not the be all and end all that some people would have you believe, and on a screen of 30 degrees or so, really are you really going to notice any difference? The differences are going to be marginal, and okay, if you blow it up and look at it carefully, you will see a benefit potentially, but in flight I very much doubt that you won't. The other issue with the Fat Sharks is they're neither 16:9 or 4:3. They're a weird 16:10 image, so whatever you do, whether you fly 4:3 or whether you fly 16:9 FPV cameras, there's going to be screen cropping or image cropping going on. They don't have HDMI, they don't have head tracking. The benefit of them, or depending on which way you look at the negative, is that with the Fat Shark Attitude V5s, you've obviously got to buy a separate module. Now, when I did the reviews on these guys, a lot of people said that the benefit of the Fat Shark is that you could put a module in it, rapid fire, etc. Rapid fire is basically the one that always comes up, and I'll check that out in my testing, but the others are all pretty much the same as the ones in the Skyzones, which are really, really good. But realistically, you're going to spend 230 quid on a goggle and then spend 130, 140 quid on a module. I think you'd be mad. So I think we're really talking about a different range, and in this sort of price range, I'd have no issue telling someone to get these with its integrated modules, because why would you spend the equivalent of pretty much more than half the price of your goggles on a module and still have a relatively small screen? You know, if you're gonna fight the module war and get rapid fire, then at least get a goggle that you might get some benefit out of. So yeah, so these are very much mid-range. I think it's a cracking set of goggles. I've flown with them, I haven't had any issue. They're very much familiar to me because they're very similar to the Skyzone 2 that I've previously had. The image in them is really, really nice. There's tons of adjustment. They're comfy, but you'll have to use this pad. And in previous experience, the reliability is really good. I think the only thing I would say is that the Skyzone 2X, or the more expensive of the new pair, there's a Skyzone 2C, which is pretty much the same. It doesn't have the camera, and if you're on a budget, that's the one I would go for rather than this one. I sometimes use the camera on my Skyzone goggles because I wear glasses, and if I'm all set up and my quad makes an odd noise, then I'll quickly flip to the camera and just check that, you know, it's only hitting some grass or something, as opposed to lifting the goggles up. But really, it's a pretty sort of niche use. So the O2Cs are probably the ones to get on a budget. So yeah, that's pretty much it. DVR is sadly not as great as the Skyzone 3s. I wish it was. Image quality is fantastic for the size of the screen. Build quality is great. Integrated receivers work great. Pretty much the same as every other module, bar potentially the rapid fires. They're comfy. They're pretty decent value. They come with a ton of cables. They can run 2 to 6S batteries, so you can just use your existing LiPos. And that is about it. I think one thing, just to finish this off with, I think the biggest competitor to this, if I was looking at a goggle, is this, which is the Skyzone 3. I think these retail for 230, 240 quid, something like that. I got these for 310. And at that sort of price, 60 quid, 70 quid difference between, I know which one I would buy. And they're essentially the same goggle for all intents and purposes, but this one has a field of view which is 12 degrees bigger. It's not a deal breaker. The image quality on this is arguably better because it's smaller and thus you don't see the imperfections. But this guy is the goggle that I've been using day in, day out instead of my HDOs. And if you want to know the reasons for that, then I'll leave a link in the description up there. And both of these I actually bought with my own money. These of course were sent via Banggood for a review. So there you go, cracking pair of goggles. Make your own mind up. For me, these are, the Onways are cheapy goggles with poor quality workmanship. Skyzone and Fat Shark I always think are on a level playing field. They do things in their own different way. Skyzone, better value for money, better put together and materials used. Fat Shark, overpriced, very good OLEDs in these particular goggles, but the rest of them you're essentially paying for the warranty. So if you're the type of guy who, you know, drives a Kia because it's got a 7-year warranty, you know, this is going to be the goggle for you. If you'd rather, you know, buy a better car but one that has a shorter warranty, this is for you. So yeah, there you go. I don't think there's a bad pair of goggles out there. Whether you get these or the Attitude V5s, you'll be pretty happy. But for an extra 70 quid, 60 quid when they're on offer, I'd get these. That's it for me, guys. Thank you. Bye bye.
I drift away and let the wind take its control. Could it be that we don't know where to go? It's hard to believe and I can't take it anymore. So I drift away, drift away. What can I say to make it clear? I can't control the words you hear. What can I say? I got lost on my way back home. You pulled away and left me